Hi guys! So today's video is another real talk video. It's about something I'm really passionate about, as you've already seen. I've been working with a lot of animal, rescuers and NGOs to find a lot of puppies and cats homes over the last couple of years since I think we adopted Mars from Boy for All. And lately I've been seeing a lot of conversations about adoptions and breeds versus indies and those kind of conversations on social media, and I feel like there's just a lot we can all learn about what adopt don't shop really means. And of course the narrative has really changed over the years. I've had a lot of dogs that we've adopted from families earlier, and today even that's considered wrong. And that's the point of this video, for anyone who is interested in adopting or anyone who's an animal lover, to kind of see where the movement is at today and how we can all do better. So a little backstory, for those of you that don't know, a couple of years ago, I adopted the most adorable dog, Mars, from World for All. And it's been an incredible journey. He's not our first dog. We've had dogs in this house since I was born. So obviously, we've always had pets, and it's been, different with Mars, because not just because he's an indie, but because he's just such a loving dog, which I think of all our fur babies, for me at least, like my bond with him is so strong. I feel like he's the best thing that could have happened to me, like in terms of he's such an amazing dog and just gives me so much love. And yeah, so I just wanted to kind of do this video to kind of tell you guys about the adopt don't shop movement, what it really means, because I feel like there's so many misconceptions today where people think it's okay to adopt from a friend, or don't really know about backyard breeding. And I also didn't know about all of these things, and honestly I've been more informed and educated over the last couple of years because I've worked with a lot of rescuers and NGOs to try and find animals homes post like adopting Mars. But I've got two lovely people who work in the rescue world who are going to actually tackle all these things, talk about, the adopt don't shop movement, how shelters work, breeds, different breeds versus indies, and, all the pros and cons and everything about adoption. So this video is for animal lovers that want to learn more, for anyone that's keen on adopting soon, and just anyone that generally wants to kind of educate themselves on where this whole animal welfare movement is going in the current space.
Hi, Sanjana. Hi, Nimisha. Thank you so much for doing this.
Hi.
So, for those of you that don't know, these are both amazing women that do rescues every single day. And I feel like they deserve a lot of credit for getting so many animals homes. And there's so many misconceptions and, like about indies, about adoptions, I feel, in today's space. And I love that a lot of you are vocal, and the organizations that you are part of are vocal, for the animals and giving them a voice. And I would love to tap into a couple of things to kind of, get more information out from you, because I know you're the experts. Okay. So I'm going to start with you, Sanjana. I wanted to tap in a little bit about the whole adopt don't shop movement. The hashtag has become really popular now. It's cool to, say I adopted a puppy, but what really does adopt don't shop mean? Also, if you could tell us a little bit about backyard breeding, about what really entails adoptions, because I feel like, as someone who's had dogs my whole life, okay, I grew up in a house, I was born into a house with dogs, and all our dogs, I think, were all adopted from families, which at that point we thought was adopting, like I adopted Mars from World for All through Nimisha, and I didn't make that connection that they're both very different until the last couple of years, when I've been working with organizations and understanding that, oh yeah, there's a clear difference in those adoptions and these adoptions, and why even that is wrong. And I feel like a lot of people don't have this information today, which is what I wanted to kind of tap in and understand more about.
So the whole adopt don't shop movement basically over the last 7-8 years has gotten very strong, but there's a very clear difference between taking a puppy home from a home litter and calling it adoption. It's not. Versus taking home a dog or a puppy from a shelter. Taking home a dog that is in need, that has been brought into this world because of unfortunate circumstances and has been abandoned, as opposed to taking home, choosing your friends or your family or people, acquaintances that you know, making that choice to bring more dogs into this world, and then saying, oh, but these dogs also deserve good homes. Every dog deserves a good home. But if you have that choice of not, if you have the ability not to bring in lives into this world when there are so many that need homes already, then that choose to do that and adopt from a shelter rather than going to someone's home litter and adopting.
And that's also part of the whole breeding process, right? Like, which I didn't
Yes.
really know. So if you could just tap into that as well and talk about backyard breeding as well as, regular breeders, and what are the evils behind kind of adopting dogs that have been through that?
We can't really say that there are any ethical breeders in our country, or rather, not that there aren't any. They are unicorns. They are maybe a percentage of them. They don't advertise commercially because for them it's not about the money. It's about carrying on the genetic bloodline of the dog and making sure that the dog is genetically sound. They're not people who you're going to find on Facebook and OLX, and they're not people you're going to
Right.
find there. You'll go through referrals. They have extremely strict procedures in place, and you wouldn't have even heard of them. And also, what they charge is a bomb. You're paying anywhere upwards of $1.5 lakh for a puppy from these guys, which the average layperson is not willing to pay, or rather, maybe doesn't have the means to pay it. So but they have the aspiration of wanting a fancy breed dog. So now that aspiration then converts into a demand. And so what happens when there's a demand? There's going to be a supply. But the supply is a whole bunch of backyard breeders and puppy mills who keep the dogs in terrible conditions. They don't follow any sort of breeding norms, breeding rules. The welfare of the dogs is not kept in mind. Puppies are separated from the mother as young as 25, 20 days. They are sold. Most of these puppies end up dying because they're not viable enough at that point to survive on their own without the mother.
Right.
It's a lot of heartbreak all around. And then when these dogs are done with their breeding and they're no longer useful for these puppy mills and backyard breeders, then they're either thrown out to die on the roads, or they're just taken to vets to euthanize. We have rescued dogs from veterinary clinics where they have been brought in. They're perfectly healthy. They're just old and they can't reproduce. They've been brought in to be put down. And we have rescued dogs from there.
Nimisha, I would love for you to kind of talk a little bit about, different breeds and how some breeds are not really suited to our country and why Indies are more suited in that sense. And I know you have a personal experience with your lab, and how you kind of adopted your lab. And also, for those of you that don't know, Nimisha is responsible for giving me Mars. She was the one that gave me the okay tick and approved me. So thank you for that. And we've been, I think, talking closely over the last 2 years to kind of get as many animals homes as possible. And she's amazing at what she does. So yeah, Nimisha, go ahead.
So that way, regarding what Sanjana mentioned about the lack of knowledge, I was there at some point in my life as well. And I really wanted to adopt. Thankfully, that concept of buying was never taught to me, I guess, as a young child while growing up. My dad you always get dogs. You don't pay for life. That was something I knew. I grew up with it. So I wanted to adopt. So I just went on Facebook and typed adopt a dog. And the first post I got, I just messaged the lady saying, hey, I want to adopt. Anyone works. Just not a puppy, because I was living on rent. The teething is not something I can manage. So the first dog, they're like, hey, this one needs a home. And it just happened really fast. I guess with the knowledge that I have right now, I wouldn't qualify myself maybe back then to adopt exactly. A lot of planning has to go into it, a lot of thought, a lot of financial planning. That's not something that I had exactly foreseen. So the first post was a labs post. Now that I know about attraction, I know that because it was a lab sport, it was the first one, and an indie would have probably been at the end had I scrolled enough. And I got my dog home without much knowledge about his medical issues, history. It was all in broken pieces, and I didn't really care. Like, he was mine now. He got home, and after a while, when I started going to the vet, is when I started realizing the number of issues he had simply because of excessive breeding. Has severe hip dysplasia. At 2 years, he came to me limping. I figured maybe it's a small injury while playing. And then when I go and get the x-rays, I find out all this. So at that point, at least, it was a lot for me to process. And I mean, he's the love of my life. So there was no giving up or abandoning him. But the sad part is that before me, 7 people did that to him. He went through 7 homes before he found me. This is what ends up happening in our country. A lot of dogs are not suited. There's a certain climate. There is a reason why Indies are Indies. They're Indian dogs. They're meant for this country. And the reason that they're homeless, the reason they're on the street is not because Indies don't deserve homes or Indies are dirty or they're too active. things I've heard all too often, but it's simply because there's no demand. People don't realize that these are dogs of our country. They're Indians. They're like us. And if only that one simple notion changes, that idea of a fancy breed meaning something in a home, whereas Indies meaning something different, I think a lot would change in terms of breeding, in terms of adopt own shop movement, all of that. I think at the end of the day, as people who are animal lovers going forward to adopt, they need to see the animal's benefit. Is the animal going to be happy in that home? And then kind of take your decision alongside.
Sanjana, anything you want to add to that?
So, building on what Nimisha said, it's going back to what I was talking about with respect to illegal breeding. Breeding is a genetic science. It's not something for anyone to play around with or to fool around with. There are a lot of genetic medical issues that are passed on from mother to child, from somewhere in the bloodline.
Right.
There are a lot of genetic diseases, certain behavior. There are bloodlines that carry aggression as a trait. And these are things that the average layperson doesn't know. These breeds are becoming mere shadows of what they're supposed to be because of the illegal breeding market. And even with respect to our indies, I want to build on something that Nimisha said there, which is that everyone, when people come to the shelter and they want to adopt a pedigree dog, everyone's always asking me, what are the requirements of the dog? What do they need? They need something in specific, and they're so careful and conscientious about what they need to do justice to that particular breed because of the breed traits, right? But the minute it's an indie, everyone's like, okay, it's an indie, it'll manage, it'll kind of do its own thing. No, you respect an indie for being an indie.
That I agree with you completely, and I'm just going to segue into the next question because it's kind of similar. Where I just wanted to talk about that in my lifespan, I've never seen a bad dog, right? There's no bad dog, and I always say this. My dad, who's a dog lover, taught me everything about dogs. Told me this firsthand that there's no bad dog, and if you get bitten by a dog, the dog is not bad. It's because there are certain traits, they all have personalities, they all have their own individual identities, just like human beings. And you can't kind of just, box them into what you see as a puppy and think that's what it's going to be like for the rest of their lives. I feel like the poor dogs suffer when they are that exception to that breed, or even when people don't really realize how every dog takes work, no matter what breed they are. People see these great videos on Instagram and think, oh my God, wow, puppies are so amazing.
It's so
and
easy.
Just get a puppy. It's so easy. And then like in week one, people are like, oh, I can't do this, So if you guys could share your experiences on that a little bit, and talk about that.
There's no bad dog, there are bad owners. That's about it. But it's also extremely important that when you are adopting, firstly, so if you're going to bring home a dog, throw out all your ideas of, I want this particular breed because this breed is going to be this. Choose a dog based on your lifestyle. So if you have a very active lifestyle, if you're the type who goes out and runs and hikes and treks and you do road trips, and you want a companion who's going to be there with you for all of that and keep up with you, then there's a particular type of dog for you. But if you're someone who's working 8 hours a day and you want just a chill, calm dog who's going to be there and be a companion to you when you come back at the end of the day and come and cuddle up and watch TV with you, that's an entirely different dog. But it's not based on the breed. It's based on the temperament of the dog. So when you walk into a shelter, your adoption counselor will fit that dog to you. But you got to have an open enough mind to say that I'm going to walk into a shelter without having any preconceived notions about age, sex, breed, color, size. I'm going to leave all of that at the gate. And when I walk in, I will take what my adoption counselor is saying into account, because they know the personality of the dog and they can therefore fit the dog to you.
That's amazing, because I feel like we all go in with some thought process, right? Like you think also it's so easy with puppies because they look so cute that you just get like drawn to them, and you don't think about once they grow big, how big are they going to get? How big is my house? What is the time I can give this dog? As you said, like that's very important. Nimisha, anything else you want to add? I know Nimisha is very thorough with her checks, first-hand experience. So when Nimisha, gave me Mars, she came home, I think twice, to check on Mars, to check on my house, to see how safe it is for him, to see us, to see, how he's coping and all of that. And I think even with the cats, we've like rescued. Nimisha has been so thorough with finding them homes that like, I feel like you're like, when I know they're adopted, I'm like, okay, it's done. Like they are going to be happy. Like I know that, like it's not like a if and when situation. And I think that's incredible and also really important, because I feel like when the animals go into the wrong hands, they suffer much more than
Absolutely.
being at
I
the
think
shelter
wrong
in
homes are
foster
one of
care,
the
right?
scariest things that can happen to an animal. Like
Yeah,
sometimes you feel like at least on the street they have themselves and they can fend for themselves, but in a bad home, they're literally at your mercy. So it's, I think, one of the most important things as someone who's responsible for animals, that you do your 100% and be sure on top of that before you give an animal to somebody. I feel like as people going in for adoption, especially for first timers, it's a great thing to actually go and adopt a dog who's already within their personality instead of going for a young one, which you like, you can't predict what they grow up to be.
that's
Because
true.
at
Yeah,
that
that's a
point,
really
you
important
don't know.
point.
One thing I have to say is that the trend definitely is changing. We have been doing some amazing senior dog adoptions.
Yeah, I've been
Um,
seeing.
yeah, and I'm talking about seniors as in like 9, 10 dogs that are
Right.
dying, dogs that are on their way out, and we've been doing some amazing adoptions. So I think I honestly genuinely think just awareness is the way to go towards indies, especially. There are even compared to say 2 years ago, I would still struggle to do indie adoptions 2 years ago. But over the last year and this year, it's suddenly this thing has been picking up, and people are like, you know what? Yeah, we need to appreciate our indies more.
Also, I think people have seen now. I think a lot of people are seeing how amazing Indies can be, how they're so loving, how they're so, as beautiful as any other breed. And, if you raise them right, they're just the most gorgeous dogs ever. And I think people often with me and Mars, I get stopped all the time when I walk him, and people are like, "Oh, what breed is this?" With like such, and I'm like, "Oh, he's an Indie," and they're like, "What, really?" And I'm like, "Yeah, he's an Indie," and they're like, "Oh, he's so handsome," or "He's so well groomed," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's because I put in the time to do that,"
Yeah.
and he's an incredible dog. So I think it's all about perception, as you said, and what people think. And when you grow into them and they grow into you, that bond, I feel, is just so much more than how a dog looks. So final takeaways from this conversation, guys, correct me if I'm wrong. Pick the right dog for your lifestyle and not about how they look or how cute or how young they are. Also, senior dogs are great as for adoptions, so definitely consider
Especially
that
for first timers.
for first time pet parents. So definitely consider that. Indies are amazing, obviously, always. And any more parting thoughts?
I don't know. I think just continue
Adopt from the
continue doing
shelters.
this.
Adopt from the
Adopt.
shelters. Don't
Yeah.
don't adopt from your like friends and families, and just think of breeds.
Yeah, because that's
Adopt.
not adoption technically. That's
Yeah.
home breeding, that you're taking a puppy away without paying money or not. Like the money does not
Yeah.
even matter in that case. It's the fact that that life was
Yeah.
not supposed to be there, and you're giving that life a
Right.
home. And one indie on the street or one abandoned pet on in a shelter is missing that chance out because
Yeah.
of that choice.
Right. So basically, adoptions are not about money, guys. It's not about money being exchanged or not. It's about adopting from a shelter or
Yeah.
from a rescuer that's picked up an animal from the road or in need. And we really want to get more animals home. So thank you for doing this, guys. Thank you for helping me, share this information with so many more people. And we're going to end this video with some amazing adoption appeals from both your organizations and some more doggies as well across the country. So anyone who's looking at adopting, check out these adoptions, give them a lovely home. And I will also put your details in the description for anyone that watches this at a later date and wants to adopt, because we all say adopt, don't shop, and we mean it, and we really want to get more animals home.